Welcome to another NSG Intellivison Amico live chat, episode 2. First of all, thank you guys so much for the positive feedback on episode 1. I want to thank Segi and Creep again for joining me. And since it's Black Friday, you can listen to this episode live for free right here on YouTube. What a deal! Same as always, but I'm glad you could be a part of it. I am the Nosware Gamer. I run a family-friendly YouTube channel covering retro video games, including the Intellivision and retro toys since 2014. I was also the host of the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast. Tonight, joining me is Tony from the Geek Getaway. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, No Swear Gamer. Do you want me to call you No Swear, NSG? How do you want me to?
NSG is fine. You can also call me Phil. That's my first name. Now let me. Well, first of all, why don't you tell the people out there a little bit about your interweb presence, your YouTube show, your web page, or whatever, how they can find you, what it's all about.
Well, I run a gaming and geek related website called the geekgetaway.com. We do reviews, previews. We talk to developers. We get inside information. We make a few scoops every once in a while. From that, we transition to the YouTube channel, which I mainly run at this point. But I mean, basically, that's about it.
And now some of your stuff, just so my audience knows, some of your stuff is not family friendly. So if you have little kids around or if you're at work, you might want to give a heads up to that. Just be aware of that. But he has a lot of good stuff out there. Before we get into the Amico, I just want to take a second to kind of break the ice with you. So I was looking at your channel, just perusing through your videos, and I noticed that you had some wrestling videos on there. And I noticed one about the finger poke of doom from WCW way back in the day. Were you a WCW fan growing up?
Well, growing up, I was a WWF fan up until about, I would say, 1996, when the whole NWO thing kicked off, and then I jumped ship to the WCW.
Because it's interesting because it wasn't too long ago that I decided, it was when the NWO was having some sort of anniversary. And I decided, you know what? I was a WWF fan growing up. And then during the Raw, during the Nitro days, I kind of stopped watching and I missed the whole NWO thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and see what this was like. So I was watching every Nitro. I was watching all the pay-per-views, sometimes skipping through stuff just to see what it's like. And just this week, I got to that Finger Poke of Doom episode. So it's fascinating to go back. Do you have any favorite WCW memories?
Favorite memories, probably just watching Eddie Guerrero. He was my favorite wrestler. I pegged him early on. I was like, this guy is going to be a world champion. He's going to go places. And my family was always like, no, Eddie's too small. He's never going to be a world champion. And so when he finally did win the big belt in WWF, I kind of rubbed it in my father's face a little.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll say this and then we'll get to some Amico talk. But one thing watching it back, man, Chris Jericho was talented. That guy was entertaining from day one. He had a lot of talent. And one of my favorite memories is I actually got into wrestling for a little bit around 2000. I actually remember watching the episode where WWF bought out WCW and Shane McMahon surprised everyone at the end. That to me is like one of those memories that's like ingrained into my brain. Whoever thought that we would see a day like that in wrestling. But let's move on to Amico. Now, before we really dig into it, I want people to know where we stand. So for myself personally, if I was to say on a scale from 1 to 10, how excited you are about the Amico, 10 is you're super excited, 1, not at all, 5 is completely neutral. I would probably say me personally, I'm like a 3.5, maybe a 4. I used to be like an 8 or 9, but then the price increase and the delays, and I just kind of lost that excitement. I'm very fascinated people will be like, well, why are you covering it? I'm fascinated with the development of this. I've never seen anything like this in my life, but I'm not an investor. I'm not friends with Tommy Talarico. He made a few comments on some of my Amico videos early on. And then when I said, is the price increase too much? He mysteriously stopped commenting on my videos. And I would say I'm a target audience because I'm married. I have 4 kids ranging from preschool to high school. But just, for me personally, it's just it's just not there. So let me start with you. Are you an investor in Amico?
No, I'm not an investor.
And I don't think you're friends with Tommy. Is that correct?
No, I would say that me and Tommy are not friends.
You're not getting a Christmas card from him this year, probably.
No, probably not.
And if on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 not excited at all, 10 super excited, where would you put your interest in the Amico?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I guess on a personal level, like if I'm excited to play it, I'd probably put it at like a 2. But as far as because I cover it so much and I just want it to come out, I think I'm at like a 7 because I want to see this thing released and I want to find out, what's going to happen when it goes out into the market and what people are going to say about it.
Now, did you pre-order an Amico?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so why did you pre-order it? If you were personally at a 2, why did you decide, let's go ahead and sign up for this thing?
Well, I pre-ordered it the same reason why I bought my PS5, the same reason I got a Switch. I cover video games, video game topics, the newer stuff. It is a new console coming out, and if I'm going to talk about it, if I'm going to review it, I need to have one.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. That'd be like the one reason why I would myself get one today. So and so you pre-ordered a system. So you actually, some people are like, well, they give more sway to that, right? Like you don't even care about it, but you care enough to pre-order it, which says something. Before we get into a couple questions I have with you, I want to just cover some more recent stuff and just get your opinions on it, get your feedback. So the first thing is Astro Smash. Did you see the deep dive that came out on that?
Yeah, I did watch that.
What's your opinion of that deep dive? Do you have any?
Um, I mean, it's Astro Smash. I played the original not too long ago on the channel, um, and Tommy just actually said something on Atari Age a couple hours ago about how many levels the game's going to have. So that actually kind of changed my opinion a little bit. His comment. So in the video, he says there's 10 levels, but what he meant was there's 10 backgrounds, if that makes sense, and then it flips and goes back to the first background on level 11, and it just keeps going, repeating every 10 levels. So I mean, it is a very basic. It looks nice. The backgrounds look nice. The foreground images are kind of weak. It looks a little disjointed. The shots are still not firing from the vehicles. They look like they're coming out of the air. It looks like it needs some polish. I'll say that.
Yeah, so I think what Tommy said now I didn't see the entire deep dive because honestly, I wasn't interested in seeing. It's such a simple game that I don't need to watch it for 20 minutes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I kind of got the taste, but I do recall him saying like if you beat level 10, I think you get to see the ending, but then it keeps going. I think that's what happens. I do like games that have an ending. I'll be honest with you. There's some people are more high score people, and there's some who are like complete the game, and I'm kind of more of the complete the game. I don't mind high scores, but I saw that and I was like, you know what? It looks good. It looks good for what it is. I'd probably like playing that for 5 or 10 minutes. It's not a game I could. It's probably a game where I'd play past level 10, get the ending, and then I'd probably not touch it again for a while unless some buddies were doing a high score thing, and then I might get into it, if that makes sense.
Oh
So
yeah.
and I'll give them credit, hey, they got a deep dive out without any controversy, right? I mean, you haven't heard anything about this one, have you?
Not yet. Not yet.
No stolen artwork, nothing like that. So let's go then to battle tanks or tank battle or whatever you want to call it. What is your opinion on that whole thing?
That's a huge fiasco because I don't know if you know that they showed off the game twice before in the August 5th uh, preview video and in the October 10th video. Now, in the August 5th video, they clearly have the Fury tank on the title screen with the word Fury on the barrel still. But on the deep dive video, they had edited out that Fury from the tank barrel, which tells me that were not meant to be placeholders. These were meant to be final textures, final assets. And unfortunately, someone who happened to play War Thunder and World of Tanks, they noticed this stuff, and uh, I think they need a better quality assurance. Someone looking over everything,
Yeah,
because I mean this.
I would say that they just need flat out quality assurance everywhere. You know, and I don't mean it like in a mean way, but it just seems like there's so many little things. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
the phrase I used last episode was "death by a thousand cuts." There's like all these typos in emails, and listen. Let me just be honest. I make typos all the time, but I'm one guy, right? I'm one guy, small YouTuber, and I don't have an editor or anyone looking over that stuff. It's just me, and it's just a thing I have to get over. But typos, even I want your opinion on this. And I know there's going to be different manufacturing processes going on between these two, but the games they made, the physical product, I should say. Did you pre-order those? I believe you said you did in one of your videos. I can't remember.
yeah. I have the 8-pack.
So though when they made those, all of a sudden it came out, hey, some of them are printed upside down, right? Like they glued the boards in upside down so the coin was on the bottom rather than the top. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, and biplanes was supposed to be bolded or whatever. Now it's a collector's item. And I'm just thinking, what if the Amico goes through a factory and something gets installed upside down? What if the Amico is going and something like, how does this get through? It just, and I know mistakes happen, but it's not just one thing. It's one thing after another. Does this like ring true to you? Do you see this happening? Like, it's like all these little things here and there, all these little fires to put out.
Oh yeah. Like you were saying about the emails having mistakes. Well, here's the thing that a lot of people don't know, and I don't make it public, but I have actually contacted them before and be like, hey, your email has a mistake. You might want to, correct that. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to correct it. And then the next email would have the exact same mistake in it. So I don't know if this is just negligence or, indifference. They don't care. But I do see all these little mistakes just building up. Uh, and I think as far as the coins, now, I don't think they have the money to send things back. They might have caught the mistake and said, like 20 of these boxes have the coins glued in wrong, but they can't afford to be like, all right, make us 20 more boxes, do another run. So they just kind of like, well, we just had to take it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this comment right here, I didn't realize the issue with biplanes lettering until Tommy mentioned it. Doesn't bother him, but that's true for me too. I didn't notice it was an issue until Tommy brought it out. I'm like, why would you do that? It's like you could have just. I don't know if anyone would have noticed that.
Well, that's the thing. Actually, people did notice.
Oh, did they really? I guess I
Yeah.
should have known better because there's a lot. I know there's people in your circle, I believe, who do deep dives on everything they're doing. Or at least people that if that's not true, you can let me know. But there are people who are definitely going through this thing with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I know them. There's people on Reddit, that post on the Reddit that I started.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, that clears it up a little bit. Is that the Reddit that Tommy says is full of hate, or is that a different Reddit?
Yeah, that's the full of hate Reddit, which I am no longer a mod of because the unofficial, official Amico Reddit's head mod actually made a whole drama post about me because I decided that it would be in the best interest if I was not the head mod of the Reddit. So they took it as an opportunity to try to slander me and drag my name through the mud.
Now, were there a bunch of death threats or whatever on that? That's what Tommy says. I don't know. I didn't see it, but you've been a part of there. Were there people acting that way?
No, we made sure to keep it clean of that stuff. We did not allow personal attacks, anything that would cross the line, anything that was unacceptable, especially since because the terms of service on Reddit are really strict. And I was always afraid that if we let anything slide, they could basically complain and then have the whole thing shut down, and we would lose all that information. So I was very, very on top of that.
Let's see. Genovi's in the chat. He says Battle Tanks looks like an early 2000s PDA port. I couldn't imagine shipping that as a full price game. Do you think these games, you know, they kind of carry that vibe for the most part? These games, like you know, like it's a good extra game, but it's not a game. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, and I know that these games are budget titles, right? They're supposed to be $10 games, but do you get the feeling that some of these games don't carry enough water for enough people?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the games are things you would expect. Like I think Gen X Gamer said, that was something they would dream about in 1987. But in 2021, people's expectations for what games should be and how robust the gameplay should be has increased exponentially. I think Tommy's whole mindset is still stuck in that 70s. This was good enough, single screen, slap some stuff together, and it's fine.
Yep. Tommy O says that's called shovelware. So do some of these games give you a shovelware feel?
Some of them do because they were free web games at one point or free mobile games.
So let me ask you this too. Let me get something positive out of you, because I like to look at everything. What's your favorite game you've seen so far? Is there one that you say, out of all the games they've showed, I would play this one?
Ooh, I do want to try Finnegan Fox because I played Fox and Forest. I did interview the developers, so I was a little interested to see what they did with it. The changes they made. Rigid Force Redux. I like shooters and Flying Tigers because, as far as I know, there's no Flying Tigers on anything else. So I want to at least try that. Like I said, I am big into shooters.
Yeah, I think Flying Tigers looks good, and I think that I think you're right about Finnegan Fox. Now, a lot of people have criticized the graphics because originally it was like a pixel art game, looked more like a Super Nintendo game, and they've given it that kind of fresh coat of mobile paint, if you will. I actually don't think it looks terrible. I actually think it looks fine with the new coat of paint. It doesn't bother me. I am a pixel art guy, but I think that's like kind of well, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I do remember that on the card that came with Finnegan Fox, it said it was loosely based on Fox and Forest or whatever the game was originally called. And that's almost like a spit take for me, because I've heard people say it's basically the same game with just new paint.
Yeah. From my understanding, it is the same game with a few quality of life tweaks. Obviously the art style is different, and there's a multiplayer mode that was added to it. But as far as the structure of the game, the way the levels advance and everything, as far as I know, that should be the same. And personally, for me, the art style is really bad. And if you read the developers interview I did with it, that was like a love letter for them to the Super Nintendo. That was their system growing up. They wanted to make a game in that style. They're passionate about it, and to see that passion just painted over with a mobile paintbrush, if you will, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I can understand from that point, if you created it and you really dig the pixel art, that would be that, like that, it's, to me, kind of reminds me a little bit of like Super Mario All-Stars, if you will, where they gave everything a graphical update. And whether you like it or not, there's some people who prefer Mario the old fashioned way, and that's completely fine. One thing I wanted to get to is also, in as far as recent news goes, is the fact that they said that they started formal productions. Now, before I get your comments on this, I want to play a clip that I played in a video I just posted. This comes from DJC. This is the first time I've done a clip on this stream thing, so hopefully this will work. But this is it DJC? Is that what his name? Game Studio. This is Amico Forever episode 10. I want to say this just happened.
No, they're going into formal. We'll get into the email. I'm going to put that up on the screen soon. They're going into formal productions, which means they're getting ready to go into manufacturing. So that basically means they're getting stuff ready, like that. They're going to set up the assembly line. They got to get all the parts together, get everything ready to get into manufacturing. But that's great news to starting into production. That is awesome.
Absolutely. It means
So
they've got all the parts and they're ready to go. They just need to start getting them on
they
the
just need
line
to
and
get
get
everything
everything
put
moving.
together, your locations, your what do you want to call it, your assembly line, get all that ready.
So that was a really interesting kind of thing for him to say, because when I first heard him say that they're getting stuff ready, when I first heard him say that they're entering formal production, uh, I thought that meant that they were in a factory already. Am I the only one who thinks that way? Is it like when you heard that, what did you think?
I thought they were in the manufacturing phase already because the German article that I covered a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, also mentioned that they were manufacturing already. So I was already under that assumption. This whole idea that formal production, which is a term that I've never heard used before, and I used to be in manufacturing. Um, so I don't know if this is Tommy doing wordplay again and adding qualifiers that don't need to be added. Um, but he has not clarified anything as far as what the schedule is, as far as how long it's going to take, how long it's going to take to ship after it's manufactured. That they did in fact secure all the parts, how many of those parts they secured, how many consoles they're going to make in this first run. So they might not actually be in the manufacturing phase. They might be, like DJC says, just in the formal ordering and getting the final checks done before actually manufacturing.
Yeah, because the way he talked about it, because when I heard formal production, and I heard some people saying, "Well, what does that mean?" He talks about it like, "Duh," which made me think, and I'm just speculating, that he heard from Tommy himself. That Tommy told him, clarified with him, because let's see, the statement says that we've completed our pre-production. So to me, pre-production is when you're getting all the parts together, right? Pre-production is getting all your ducks in a row. Production is, okay, now the ducks are moving and we're shooting at them, or whatever you want to do. So, and they said, and started our formal production of Amico consoles. So yeah, this word game is just another one of these things that I think Intellivision has to stop, because it happened. I remember when it happened at the very beginning, when Tommy said every game on the Amico is going to be an exclusive, right? And when you're a gamer and you hear exclusive, what does that say to you, Tony?
Oh, that means that that game is only going to be on a single console or a mobile device or whatever.
Yeah, because like back in the day, Sonic the Hedgehog was a Sega exclusive for a long time, right? If you wanted
Right.
to play Sonic, it started on the Genesis and then Master System Game Gear, but you weren't going to get it on a Nintendo. There is no chance you're going to get, and the same with the Mario games, right? Now sometimes things happen where they would have crossovers, or they would work out deals with Philips CDI and they had a Mario game, or computers would have games. But for the most part, an exclusive means this is the only place you're going to play that. And for them to go from that, well, that's not what we meant. We meant it has like a perk on it. There was a game called Earthworm Jim Special Edition for the Sega CD. You could play Earthworm Jim on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. It's just that edition had a little bit of extra. They didn't call that an exclusive. So it was just really weird. It was I don't know. It confuses me. So what do you think about this whole production thing? Where do you think they actually lie in the production at this time? When do you think systems will actually start seeing the light of day?
Uh, I don't think systems are going to start seeing the light of day until maybe mid March at the earliest. Um, Honestly, I don't think they have everything set up. I don't think they're going to do this first run in China. I believe they're going to try to do it in the US. Maybe they're ordering parts, and this formal production means that they're having those parts shipped to the US to be assembled here. Because,
Yeah,
China is going to go with the Chinese New Year pretty soon. So that's going to be like almost a whole month where there's nothing's going to happen.
yeah, and I do believe, I think it might have been on when you interviewed him. I think Nick Richards actually brought that up, that we got a new manufacturer, and they can do either America or China. And they talked about, well, we could do America, but it's going to cost more. It'd come out sooner. So I kind of track with you there, where they might be doing that. It's hard to tell because I get the feeling that, and correct me or let me know what you feel. I get the feeling that they're playing a financial balancing game where they're trying to save as much money to be as profitable while trying to please people too. And they go back and forth like do we pay the extra money to get it out sooner or do we wait and hope prices drop? Do you get that kind of vibe from them?
Yeah, I get that vibe, especially when you know that if you, I don't know if you heard the investor pitch that Tommy did. Um, he's been really open that the system is going to have the profits loaded in the front, so he's supposed to make money off of every console sold. And I think the pandemic and the price increases have thrown a wrench in it. So I think he's fighting between delivering a product to the customers versus getting it cheap enough so that the investors, and not the fig investors, but the actual real investors who have equity in the company, that they get something back. Because you can't go to some guy and ask him for $1 million, $2 million, make promises, and then turn around and go, well, you know how we said we were going to make $50 on everyone sold? We're actually going to lose 30, and I can't give you your money back. I don't think that flies too well with those people.
And I'll tell you this, the people who are kind of the anti-Amigo side, who there are some who say the system's a scam, it's never coming out. To me, it has to come out. There's too much money tied up in it. I believe it's going to come out. Whether it's worth it, whether it succeeds, that's another story. But Tommy is he's got some pride in what he's done, and I don't think Tommy Talarico wants to. I don't think he wants to be known as the guy who tried to relaunch Intellivision and failed. I think he has too much pride to take the money and run. And like you said, you have these investors, that there's money in this thing. There's people he's accountable to. This is a little bit bigger than the Coleco Chameleon. So I definitely think it's going to come out. What happens after that, yeah, we'll see. What do you think of that? Do you think that it will come out for sure because of everything attached to it, or do you think I'm off base?
Yeah, I think, like you said, his pride, his ego, he won't allow it to not come out. Something will be pushed out, whether or not it's a janky mess or a polished system is to be determined at a later date. But I think something will eventually come out.
Do you think the people now you do quite a bit of research and I appreciate that. I try and do my research too when I'm covering stuff, and sometimes I do miss things, but I appreciate people who actually take the time. Like one of my pet peeves, this is just a little thing on YouTube, is when people talk about a game that they haven't even tried to learn, like they never picked up the manual or something like that, and they just rag on a game that they've spent all of 5 minutes on. And
Yeah.
that's one of my pet peeves. So when I do reviews, I read the manual, I try and look up other information, I try to get to know the game so that I can give it a fair shake, right? Because there's lots of games out there where if you don't know how to play, it's not going to be fun. So let me ask you this. Maybe you've done some more homework in this area, because when it comes to investing and stuff like that, I don't know anything about that stuff. I know the basics, but when it comes to like the legal jargon, I don't know much. Do you think these investors on the Fig and Republic, do you think they're getting any of their money back?
Oh no, I don't think they're getting any of their money back. If you read, there's a very long and convoluted chart telling them how they're going to get their money back. They basically have to sell like 25 million units to get their money back. But the way it's structured is if they sell through a third party, like say Walmart, they only get a certain percentage. But if they sell directly from Intellivision, they get a different percentage. And it's structured in a way that basically, if Intellivision wants to, they could, send consoles out to third party retailers, and then the investors on Fig would get nothing because that's the way they decided to sell them, and they would have no recourse for it.
I saw the chart you were looking or talking about, and it made no sense to me. Like I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, this doesn't, I don't get how I would make money on this. Not that I was seriously considering, but I was looking like, how are people going to actually, what do they have to do to make money? I also heard you say that in an I think it was in an interview with Nick Richards, you talked about how at one point they needed to sell something like 190,000 systems to be profitable. Is that, Is that something you recall? And if so, where'd you get that information from? I'm curious.
That came from Tommy. He was always saying that 180,000 was the break even point. And then Nick, when I interviewed him, he reaffirmed that number has increased since conception of the console. So they might probably have to sell something around 300,000 maybe now to break even.
Yeah, which is like double what the Atari Jaguar did. And I'm an Atari guy. That's why I bring it up. You know, it gets a lot of flack, but it had a big name behind it, like bigger than Intellivision, right? You know, there's no denying Atari is about 10 times a bigger name than Intellivision, just because look at the flashbacks. There was 10 Atari flashbacks and one Intellivision. And I like Intellivision, but that's just the popularity, right? So it had the Atari name. It had some reimagined classics like Breakout 2000. It had some exclusives like Alien versus Predator that were well received, and it still failed to make a dent. It was considered underpowered, and it had a weird controller. I don't know if this is sounding familiar to anybody, but this is what that, Tempest 2000, Kev Gret, Tempest 2000 was a very well-received game too. I don't know if this is sounding familiar to anybody, but the Amico, by sounds of it, has to double what they did. And I don't know if they'll be able to or not. I'm not going to wish ill will on anybody, but my experience tells me they have a long uphill battle if they're going to sell 300,000 units. How many units do you think they will sell in their lifetime? If you had to make a guess today, you had to put down some money. How many units do you think they sell?
I was always thinking that they were going to sell about 200,000, just because there is a large market in the U.S. at least of ultra conservative, ultra religious types that would go for a console that has no violence, that's E for everybody. And basically, if packaged right and sold and marketed just correctly, you'd probably be able to sell that to those people at least.
So let me ask you something about that. Do you think, and this is just fun speculation, obviously, but do you think those people, so you're talking about, Christian mom buys it because her kid can play it and it's safe, right? It's a safe thing. Do you think those parents are also going to be, because one of the kind of aspects of the Amigos, we want families to play together. Do you think, Christian mom or soccer mom who doesn't usually play games is actually going to pick up the controller and play games with their kid every week? Or are they just going to put it in the kid's room and say, here you go, have fun, it's safe?
Yeah, I think they're just going to put it in the kids' room, and it'll be one of those things like where you have moms who buy a bunch of board games or something. Like every week we're going to play a board game, and you do it once, and then the board games go in the closet and never come back out.
Yeah, and what's ironic is, and I said this last week, but Friday nights are family nights at my house. We do an activity. We play. Sometimes we play the Wii together, but we also sometimes watch a movie together, or we play board games. Today we played Rummy Cube. That's what we did as a family together. And I almost wonder if the Amico is going to be marketed like a family treadmill, where it's like, people, they buy a treadmill at the new year because they are going to get in shape, but they don't have the habit of getting in shape, right? Of exercising. So the treadmill ends up becoming a coat rack after about a month, right? So
Yep.
I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen to the Amico, because families who already are spending time together, are they really going to need an Amico? Like, I'm sure there's some of them who might say, yeah, let's put this in the rotation. But is there going to be that great number of them, versus are there people who are going to be like, yeah, we can do this as a family, and they play together once or twice and then it collects dust? And I just think that could be what happens with the Amico. Because if you're already not spending time as a family, buying a piece of plastic isn't going to change it unless you change your habits. So I'm sorry I got all Dr. Phil on you for a second. I love me some Dr. Phil. Your kids are stupid because you're stupid. Sometimes he has some good stuff to say. But yeah, I don't know. It confuses me. Let me ask you, what is your history with Intellivision? Do you have, like, growing up, did you know what it was? Did you have one? Did a friend have one? Anything like that?
Growing up, I had a ColecoVision. I was vaguely aware of what the Intellivision was just because the old comic books that we had would have, the old ads from the 70s that had all the different game systems. But other than that, I really didn't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah. So why did you eventually decide, like, okay, let me back up, because I know you're getting a system, for review purposes. When you first heard about the Amico, what did you think?
Oh, when I first heard about it, I thought it was an interesting idea. It was supposed to be a 2D system, not exactly retro, but he talked about bad dudes, beat 'em ups, shooters, old school 2D platformers and stuff like that. So I was thinking it was going to be something akin to a modern take on the Super Nintendo, which is a system that I really love. So I was kind of interested. I was intrigued to see where he was going to go with this. But I've been continuously let down by what they've shown.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there, because originally I was excited when he said, "Hey, it's going to come with all the Intellivision games bundled in that we can get. It's going to have 7 reimagined games. It's going to be 150 to 180 bucks." That sounded cool, That was right up my alley. But when they changed it, and yeah, he talks about bad dudes. I don't know if we'll ever get bad dudes, even though they said it at first, because I heard him in an interview talk about basically if one person punches another in the face, they don't want it on their system. And I was like, okay, well, that's the line. That's an interesting line to draw. So you ended up on your YouTube channel. Your first video was a chat with Tommy Talarico. Was that the first video you ever made? Because I know you can delete old videos and hide them or whatever. Or did you have videos before then?
I had 2 videos, I think. One was like kind of an intro to the channel, and one was, like plans going forward, what I was going to end up doing on the channel. But I think pretty much that was like it until the interview with Tommy.
So how did that come up? How did you end up getting an early interview? Your channel's very small, hasn't really done much, and all of a sudden you're interviewing Tommy Talarico.
Oh, that's a very, very funny story. What ended up happening, it was we got to go back a little ways. Tommy was in that whole Roblox kerfuffle, if you will. So a friend of mine was covering it, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I write about video games and stuff. I'll write an article about the Roblox situation. So I watched the video, and Tommy had popped up in the comments. So I was like, "Wow, this is a great opportunity for me to ask a couple questions about the Roblox lawsuit or potential lawsuit." And he responded to me, and I took his comments, and I made a little article about Roblox. And then that same person who made the video was saying that they were going to interview Tommy because he was coming out with a new system. That's when I started looking into the Amico. And so I started looking at old interviews that he had done, previous to that point. And someone in the comments of one of the interviews said that on the official channel, they were deleting negative comments from the channel. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. No one's talking about this. Let me see if it's true." So I went ahead and I left a comment, and I did a whole article about it. I left a comment, made sure that I wasn't banned from the channel to confirm that, I could comment on the channel. And then I left a negative comment saying that, the games look like garbage. And the comment never popped up. And then it turns out that I had got banned from the channel for that. So I verified that that had happened and that, he was deleting negative comments and criticism. And I wrote an article, and I thought that was the end of it. Come to find out, Tommy had saw the article, and he was very upset about it. And he said a lot of things about me on Atari Age that were untrue. And eventually I went to Atari Age to talk to him about it. And we got into a back and forth. And finally he was like, "Well, I'll let you interview me on your channel." And I was like, "Well, I'd rather do a written interview because I don't really do YouTube stuff. I barely had any videos at that time." And I was like very nervous. I didn't like talking on camera. But he insisted that we do a live interview, so I couldn't edit it, and so that I couldn't twist his words. And that part of the deal was that I had to keep the interview up on my channel forever. I couldn't take it down. I couldn't delete it. I couldn't
Wow.
private it.
Forever. Okay.
Yeah. So, that's the short version of everything that happened.
Do you think, looking back at it, do you think that Tommy regrets telling you to keep it on your channel forever?
Oh yeah, I think Tommy regrets a lot of our interactions.
Because it was very interesting. So I watched like the first couple hours of it. It's a 3-hour interview. It's a long one.
Yeah.
I'll give this, first of all, two credits to Tommy. One, for saying, hey, yeah, let's talk. I give credit to a guy who will say that when you disagree. Absolutely. And he can talk. There's no doubt about that. Tommy can talk your ear off. So he'll just keep talking. So credit to Tommy for that. But I heard him, and there was times in that interview where it sounded like he was getting flustered and upset at your questions. And he would say, "Oh, I'm not angry. I'm passionate." And I'm like, people who are angry are passionate.
Yeah.
You do realize that passion can be good or bad. And it goes back to that wordplay, the semantics, right? It's like, it's like saying like, it's not pig, it's pork. It's like, well, whatever you want to call it. So you do the interview with him. What was it like when the interview was done?
Oh, I think after it was done, if I remember, we just briefly, I thanked him for the interview. He was still a little upset because if you watch the interview, I don't know if you got to that point, but eventually he asked if we could be friends. And I told him no. I said, Tommy, we can't be friends if I'm going to cover the console. If I'm going to, report on this, I have to be objective. And so I can't be your friend. And he didn't take that too well.
So let me ask you something. Do you think that Tommy does this on purpose? Like he understands the psychology of what he's doing, or it's just his personality? Because I don't know if it was your interview or one of those Amico shows with Nick Richards, but Nick said everybody is Tommy's close personal friend.
He said that on my interview.
That was your interview. Okay.
Yeah.
So Tommy said that, so Nick says everyone's his close personal friend. And I understand when someone's your friend, you're more likely to stand up for them, to fight them. If someone says something bad, it's going to take a lot more for you to listen, right? Do you think like Tommy does this on purpose, where he's befriending these YouTubers just to almost using them? Or do you think it's just because, from what I hear, he's a really nice guy in person? He sounds like a guy who would be fun to have a pizza with and play some games with, right? Do you think this is a psychological play, or do you think it's just his personality and how he's found out to, kind of get ahead in life?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I've had the unique position of being both on Tommy's good side and bad side. So if you do agree with him, if you are nice to him, and you, consider him a legend, respect his accomplishments, and praise him, he'll be very, very nice to you. In fact, when he asked me for the interview, we were exchanging DMs on Atari Age. He was like, "Oh, you're from this city, and you ever been to this restaurant? And I really love this team. The team from." I'm like, I don't watch sports, and I don't go to that area of the city, and this has nothing to do with me interviewing you. So I do think he knows that if he, be friendly with you, considers you a friend, calls you a friend, that you'll go to bat for him. But I also think that is part of his personality. So at the same time, maybe he does it on a subconscious level.
So maybe he's not realizing he's doing it, but it's worked for him.
Yeah.
And so it just comes, and again, it makes sense. And I'm not saying that he is this evil mastermind who studies psychology and uses it against it. But I will say that there is a psychological factor when you befriend someone And there's also a psychological factor when you invest money in something, whether you pre-order it or actually, do the fig thing, right? Because when you put money into something, for most people, you don't want to admit you just bought a mistake, right? You want it to
Right.
succeed. So I could see that, there was a lot of when you came out with that video, you were the one who I saw, and I don't know if you're the one who found out about it or so. I think someone may have pointed it you the way of it, but when you found out there was an investor appearing at the Crayola event, and I made a video about that as well. When I saw that you did it, I was like, this is kind of a big deal. People should know, like, if these people, have money on the line when they're saying to buy something. So it's an interesting psychological thing to look at. Like, it's like, really, you put money in something and you're my friend, I'm going to stand up for you. So I do think it's important that they say that investors are in their videos. I do think that's important. And they still haven't, as last I checked, maybe today they did, but on the Crayola video, there's nothing in the description about it. So what do you think they should, like, fess up to that or address that at all, or what?
Yeah, I've been beating that drum for a while now. When the Texas event, I think that was at Crayola. No, that wasn't Crayola. The Video Game History Museum in Texas, they did a video too, and I was like, these people in the video are friends, YouTubers that are friends of Tommy's, that have business relationships with him in the past, potential investors. I mean, I was like, you should identify them. There's even a video talking about people's experiences, like first reaction to playing the Amico. And in the video, Saggy Melon's his voice is heard saying good things about the system. And I said, that's kind of misleading, because at that point in time when the video was made, she hadn't played the system yet. And I was like, everyone else who's speaking in the video has played the system, but she hasn't. And it's reasonable to assume that anyone watching that video would assume that everybody talking is having the same reaction to playing the system. So I was like, leaving that in is going to mislead people. I was like, that's just one of the numerous occasions where they, drop the ball as far as disclosing. I mean, they've had videos with Smash JT, who is a known investor, and he's not identified as such. Tommy has promoted DJC, who is an investor. They've not disclosed that on any of their videos, or when they, when they have the newsletters that come out and they say, hey, these people have made videos. Check out these videos made by fans. But, Smash JT and DJC are not fans. They're investors.
Right. And let me just be clear. I'm perfectly fine if someone wants to invest in this thing. I'm perfectly fine if they want to check out the Amico at an event. I have zero problem with that. But when the video's giving you the vibe that these are random people who just showed up at the event, right? That's the vibe it gives you. These are testimonials. And then you find out, oh, they actually have money on the line. That gives you a negative feeling. That makes you feel like you're being duped or used.
Well, it's actually worse than that. If you, because you probably don't follow it as close as some of us, but Tommy was taking those early testimonial videos and then using them for other investment raising opportunities. So, like, he took the Crayola video and he showed it off on the Fundable campaign. So he's taking investors who invested in Fig, making, letting them appear in video without identifying them, and then using that video to sell the console to other investors on a different investing website.
Yeah, that's terrible. And I'm a kind of person, like, give me proof before I completely say something's the way it is. So, like, when it comes to investors appearing in videos, I'm not going to say Tommy knows everybody and knows who's and said put the investor in the video, but I will say once it's found out, it needs to be addressed. Kind of like the Battle Tank situation. When people started pointing out, hey, look at this artwork, they eventually, it took them a 24 hours or so, but they took the artwork down and they put in the description, hey, there's placeholder artwork. Now that, let me tell you, the moment they found out about it, it became placeholder artwork. Okay. like that's what I'm going to say. Like, I don't know that it was going to be placeholder artwork until they found out, oh, now it's just placeholder. And I don't know if they're going to replace that artwork or if they're just going to leave it out now. I don't know what they're going to do because I think their backs are against the wall. But when you find out that, hey, this lady is an investor, you should say something or take her out of the video. I mean, that's just my opinion. And that's the kind of stuff that I think turns off people who aren't already bought in. And what's that going to tell Christian mom if they stumble on a video, right? Like, if you talk about how Christian moms are like a target audience, what are they going to find when they go into YouTube and they search for Intellivison Amico?
Ooh, hopefully he targets people who don't have good Wi-Fi, so they're not searching Intellivision on YouTube, because it is from both a pro and critical Amico side. I mean, there is a lot of crazies on the two extremes.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're kind of dominating the search algorithm.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's amazing how I don't know how possible it is to get even 90% of people to be able to have a conversation, just going by comments in videos when I do Amico videos. And I'll just put the most mundane thing in the video and people will automatically say, you're a hater, you're a lover, right? They'll go one end or the other. You're a cult member. Have you found that to be the case with you when you're like just given facts sometimes that people will automatically say, well, you're just out to get them and bury them?
Oh yeah, all the time. Anytime I make a video, I'm always told that I'm making too many, that I'm wrong, that I'm just lying, spreading misinformation. I'm trying to destroy the company. Even when my videos are proven to be factual, I'm then told that I'm responsible for other people who make videos based on my video. Like when you made your video based on mine, I was told that if I didn't make mine, you wouldn't make yours. So I'm contributing to this negative atmosphere about the Amico. If I would just go away, then most of the criticism would go with me because there would be nobody looking into it.
And it's a shame because I'm a person, and I'll be honest, YouTube, social media, it can be a blessing or a curse, right? I have lost online buddies because I said I didn't like this game in a review, and they're like, "How dare you not like this game?" I'm like, "It's just a game." I don't know if you ever have you ever heard of the game Sewer Shark for the Sega CD?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
So there's a line in the game where the guy looks at you on camera and he says, "Relax, pretend it's just a game. Maybe it'll even be fun." And that's what I want to say to people. It's like, it's just a game. It's just a system. It's okay if you like it. It's okay if you don't like it. But people have a hard time with that, where people seem to like take things. Someone made a comment and it's already passed me by, but it's like people are personalizing a system that they don't own, that they've either haven't played or they played very little of, but it's become such a sensitive issue. It's almost like you're talking about a family member who's on life support in the hospital. Like, don't you say a bad thing about him. I don't get it. What do you think is causing this kind of over passionate, both sides? Honestly, it's happening both sides. What's causing this passionate statement to where people are taking things so personally that they're just reacting emotionally and they can't even take anything. You don't say anything negative at all, right? What's causing this?
Well, in my opinion, the main cause of it is Tommy's rhetoric. He says things. He'll call people like gaming racist, gaming communist. He's called me a quote unquote hate leader. He's made implications as to the mental state of various individuals. He makes personal attacks on people that are then repeated by his fans. And so, when one side is attacking you, then the other side's going to, push back. And then it's a big back and forth. So, I mean, like I said, a lot of it is coming from Tommy. He's the CEO. He shouldn't be on forums, calling people names. He's implied that I am a predator. He's implied that I've stalked him online. and other things, and then that stuff gets repeated by his fans. So if Tommy would just cool it on some of his rhetoric and just let people criticize the system without having to quote unquote correct misinformation, I think a lot of this would just kind of go away.
I do think that the Tommy issue is probably the biggest issue facing the Amico more than the system itself. If Tommy, let's just take Tommy out of the equation for a second, or let's just pretend that Tommy decided to be more behind the scenes. Okay. Let's pretend that it was just, here's some games every once in a while. And they showed what's going on. Let's go a step further. They hire some guy or gal to be a spokesperson, like one of those people you see in the Verizon commercials or selling or AT&T. They always have their little person who sells their phone. And they come out and they say, hey, this is what's coming up with the Amico. Let's show you the gameplay. And they just show you the gameplay. And then that's it. You don't hear anything else until the next video. What do you think the temperature would be like for the Amico today?
Well, if they did that, I think it would have a double effect. The hateful rhetoric would probably start to dissipate. But at the same time, the general interest in the system would also go away. Without the drama, a lot of people just ain't going to be paying attention because they don't have anything that's really eye-catching.
So do you think this is a case where bad news is good news? As long as we're being talked about, we're cool with it?
I think in a way it is. I mean, it's keeping the name out there. It's keeping people distracted while everyone's fighting with each other and focused on, defending Tommy or taking Tommy down or defending me or taking me down. They're all ignoring the bigger issues that, it's over a year late. Nothing seems to be done. We have no idea when manufacturing's starting, when it's going to be shipped, what the time frames are, how many units they're making. A lot of his big grandiose promises like marketing, $10 million marketing budget or $50 million marketing budget, whatever it was, big 15 million sub YouTubers are going to be talking about it and all that. People just forget about all that and they focus on the drama. So it is helping them in a way.
Yeah, and let me point out this comment real quickly. Geek Getaway doesn't have any experience running a video game company. Yeah, he doesn't. I don't either. And guess who else doesn't? Tommy has never run a company that's produced a video game system. This is something he's doing. And by the way, I'm gonna start. I'm blocking a few people or putting them in timeout because that's what a good teacher does, who are attacking my guest, because we're not here to attack guests. And you know what? I'm not here to attack Tommy, but the way he handles things is up for debate and discussion, without a doubt. We're talking about, something that's publicly going on. And just like any other political figure or public leader or whatever, this is under a microscope. And if you're going to step out and be the leader of a new company that is putting forth a video game system, what you're going to do is going to be scrutinized. And it's okay for us to discuss it. I'm not attacking Tommy himself, but I do think some of the decisions he's made has maybe hurt the system, or at least it's brought on some of this negative press or this negative stuff that's been going on. So I think it's fair to say, hey, and by the way, every time I've talked about him, and I think you too, to a degree, every time we talk about the criticisms, we often offer solutions, right? Don't you usually offer a solution or say, hey, if you would just do this?
Yeah, I very often say, give my opinion. I'll state a fact, give my opinion on it, and then say, hey, maybe if they would have done this or they could do this going forward. So very often I do try to give solutions to the issues that I see. Whether or not they listen to them is a whole nother thing. But like you said, I mean, Tommy is the CEO. Just imagine if Miyamoto or Phil Spencer was going on forums and YouTube comments and saying things, they would get just as much scrutiny, if not more, from the mainstream press that Tommy gets. So everyone's like, well, poor Tommy, but he's the CEO, right? If he wants to make comments on YouTube or Atari Age and talk about video games and just be a fan of his own system, he can do that anonymously. He doesn't have to do it under his Atami account. He can just create a new account and talk about the system, talk about, what he likes, or talk about Vectrix or collecting old cartridges or something, whatever, you know. But as the CEO, if he talks about the system in any capacity under his, you know, his name, his account, that's considered almost official. Like you can't separate the CEO from the person because he's on a forum that only a few people know about.
Do you get the feeling that he micromanages like his company, that everything goes through his fingers, that it's all being molded in his image?
Yeah, I do think that he micromanages. I mean, a lot of times when he talks, he'll say like, I was a big fan of Evil Knievel, so that's why we went out and got this license, or I liked this as a kid, and you know, I liked the Intellivision and the disc, and that's why we went this way. So I think everything is being run, you know, the way he likes it, the way he wants it, and he's not actually letting any of the department heads do their jobs, so to speak.
Yeah, because first of all, let me just say, in one hand, I admire that he gets to take the brand that he grew up with. He had an Intellivision growing up. I knew he was a fan of Intellivision before he ever talked about the Amico, because I heard him on the Intellivisionaries podcast. And by the way, when I heard him on the podcast, I enjoyed what he contributed. I had no problem with what he contributed. But you know, when when he started getting into this, it did kind of feel like games were showing up like the Evil Knievel, because that's what he liked, right? And that he, in every event, he had to host it. He had to be there. In every video, he had to be in the video. And one of the things that just made me want to say, Tommy, come on, man, was when they did E3, and the first minute of a 10-minute E3 presentation was all about Tommy and not about Intellivision. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand, like, why are you making it about you? Because I don't know. It baffles my mind. It takes a company that I really like in television, and it just makes me say, hey, make it more than about you. If you would take a step back and say, hey, look what Intellivision's done with their legacy, and talk less about the oof sound, I think people would have respect for that. I think people would be like, hey, you know, that's cool. Let the games do the talking. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's happening right now. I want to bring up a couple clips from your interview that I pulled out and just respond to them. And honestly, on my little setup here, they look identical, so I don't know what they're going to say. So we'll get one. I listen. I am a new person at this. I understand. I'm under scrutiny too. Let's see what happens. Hopefully, the best will happen out of this. Let's check out clip number 1.
Mario or
Absolutely.
Zelda.
Let's. I got to rewind that.
If you ask the kids which games do they want to play, Shark, Mario, or
Absolutely.
Zelda, which game do you think they're going to take?
For a kid 7 and under, they're going to pick Shark every day of the week.
They're going to pick Shark over Roblox. They're going to pick Shark over Mario.
Yep, Roblox starts at 7. So 7 to 9-year-olds are on Roblox and Minecraft. 10 years old, they're on the Switch. By 12 or 13, they're on what's it called there? The Fortnite. And then by the time they're teenagers, they want a PlayStation and an Xbox. But kids 2 to 7, their parents make the decisions for them, not them.
So that was an interesting clip, because I believe before that, you know, Tommy put up this hypothetical. Hey, if you see a PlayStation controller and the Intellivision Amico controller, which one would they choose? And you said, hey, they would choose the Amico controller because it has a touchscreen. It looks more interesting. But then you turned around and you said, well, which of these games would they like to choose? Shark or Mario? And he goes, Shark 100%. I like Shark on the Intellivision. What did you feel when he answered that, when you said, yeah, they'll take Shark over Mario?
Well, I felt he was saying that because Shark is his game, so he's obviously biased, and he's going to say, you know, they're going to pick the one that, you know, we're promoting. But if you listen to the clip, I never actually listened to my interview, so this is the first time for me. But I just noticed when you listen to the clip, he answers Shark 100%, then goes through what all the different age groups are playing. And then he says, well, the children from 2 to 6, their parents are picking what they play. So that totally goes against what he said, that the kids are going to pick Shark. I didn't ask him if the parents are going to buy Mario or Shark. I asked what the kids were going to play if given a choice. So I think even he himself at the end there was kind of admitting that the kids wouldn't pick Shark Shark, but he's hoping that the parents would.
Pick it for them.
Yeah.
Say, this is good for you, kid. You don't need Mario. Take this. Hang on just a second. Let me get this comment. Ben, I tried contacting you on Facebook Messenger, but got no response. Maybe you don't really want to hear the truth. Hey, Ben, you want to come on the show? We will do this sometime. We'll set it up. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at Facebook Messenger on my page because I don't get notifications. I only find out when I go into it. Twitter is the way to go for contacting me. Just want you to know that I have been thinking you as a potential further future guest, so we can talk in the future. Someone else recommended you as well. Well, and the thing is, like Mario's like he says, Mario is an established franchise. That is absolutely true. It's established, and people, hey Ben, that's cool. Ben says he's sorry, and nope, that's totally cool, Ben. Anyways, Mario is a big deal. Kids don't know about Shark Shark. No, I'm not saying they wouldn't enjoy it. I'm not saying that at all, but they don't know what Shark Shark is. Now, this is what I found really interesting in your interview. I do recall when you talked to Nick Richards, you said, who's the target audience? He said, we're looking at a family with a kid age 7. This video right here, this clip really kind of was enlightening.
Anyone in particular that's the main focus?
I should probably say families with young kids. I think they're going to be the ones who are going to be most excited about initially getting Amico to begin with. So that's kind of low-hanging fruit for us.
Okay, so they're looking not just for kids, they're looking for kids 7 and under. And when I listened to like the context of that, he talked about, later on, like, kids from 2 to 6, like he said in that one part, 2 to 7, this is their target audience. I didn't realize, first of all, that they were targeting young kids almost exclusively. Did you ever get that feeling from the way that before this interview, that the way they communicated that they're targeting families with 2 to 7-year-olds for this?
No. Before, that's why I asked him, because he would say that he wasn't targeting retro people, but he was always going on retro YouTube channels, posting in retro YouTube forums. So I never really got that sense that they were targeting families with small children.
It amazed me that he did that, and he calls them low-hanging fruit. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Low-hanging fruit is supposed to be easy to get, right?
Yeah.
Does he really think that these parents are just going to buy a $250 system that easily?
On Atari Age, he once said that he envisions that a mom is going to wander into a GameStop, ask an employee, what do you have for a small child to play? And that GameStop employee would give them the Intellivison Amico. So I do believe he thinks that there's a lot of moms, because he's very insistent that the moms do all the shopping. So he believes that there's a lot of moms who don't do any, information gathering beforehand. They just wander into GameStop. My kid needs something to play. I'm going to leave it up to the GameStop employee to tell me what to pick.
So, Mike, interesting comment. Low-hanging fruit is the retro fans, not moms and children's. That's his target market. Have you heard? Now, I've heard it before. I haven't heard Tommy say it, but I've heard other people say has said that. Have you heard Tommy say that retro fans are low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, I've heard him say that.
Because that goes against something that I read in an article. I'm going to see if I can. I'm not going to be able to post it, but I'm going to see if I can find it really quickly. But he literally said in the, this is not it. I don't know where it's at, but he literally said in this article that retro game fans, that the people who were basically promoting the Amico right now, weren't even the target audience, that their target audience is families. Do you think that they shifted at some point from when they first came out? It's about retro gamers first and foremost, and we'll get some families. Do you think it's always been about families? Do you think families is number one now? Like, what do you think their original target audience was when they first came out? What do you think that their target audience is today?
Well, I think originally their target audience was the retro market. If you look at that original video from the Portland Retro Game Expo, where Tommy announced the Amico, it was very clear what he was targeting. He was targeting old school gamers who still wanted to collect cartridges. Who he showed a lot of old licenses. Said we're going to get all these games. We're going to reimagine some old games. I think when he tried to get investors and when he tried to get money, raise more capital, he probably had to broaden that market, at least in talking points. So, because the retro market isn't a huge market to address. Whereas if you start saying we're going to target all the families, now it makes it look like your target, your addressable market is a lot bigger, and that entices investors. So I think a lot of this is investor hype.
Okay. That can make sense to me, because originally I did think it was for retro gamers. And honestly, one of the reasons I lost my excitement is because it stopped being about the retro games. When they first announced the Amico, they gave us like 40 titles of retro franchises that were coming to the system. And since then, most of them have gone to the wayside. And it seems like lately we're hearing more about, I don't know, emoji charades or, Sesame Street or something else coming that's not related, Evil Knievel, something else that's not related to retro games, even Finnegan Fox. So I'm confused, because I feel like originally they were selling, I'll use this because he's a Ferrari guy. I feel like originally I was looking for a Ferrari that drove like an old Ferrari, right? Like just like the classic, right? It's a Ferrari and it's upgraded and it looks better, but it's based on the classic design. I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. And then I feel like they turned the Ferrari into a minivan. Like this is for the family, and it's underpowered, but this is for the family. And not that they were ever going to be an overpowered system, but I just get the feeling that we're selling minivans now, and it's not for the adults. And by the way, I have a minivan and I love it. Okay. I love my minivan. But as far as the system goes, I get systems because I'm the number one gamer in my house, not my kids, and I don't force them to play games. I let them play what they want. Are you a parent? I believe you said you had a kid in one of your videos.
Yeah, I'm a parent. I have a 16-year-old.
And do they have any interest at all in this Amico thing?
No, none whatsoever. My kid actually makes fun of me for talking about it so much.
Yeah, and it's really, it's like I said, it's fascinating. This whole thing is absolutely fascinating to me. Let me ask you, Nick Richards, you interviewed him. How did you end up interviewing Nick Richards, who, if people are in the chat don't realize or listening, that he's the CFO, he's the money man of Intellivision. How did you end up interviewing Nick?
Well, Nick Richards is actually the COO and
Okay.
CFO. He's a double position. What happened was Nick had come into the Intellivision underscore Amico subreddit and was addressing some of the when Tommy was talking about death threats, he was addressing that, and I had some questions for him, and I hit him up on DMs, and I said, hey, well, I have some concerns and questions, and I don't want to leave a long list of them here, out in the open. I said, maybe you can come on the show, I'll interview you, and we'll see how that goes. And he thought it over. He said, well, let me think it over. And a couple days later, he was like, well, you had donated to the children's charity. I don't know if you remember, but Intellivision was auctioning off a Amico shell that was signed by the team for charity, and I won that. And he said, well, you paid a lot of money for this shell. It went to charity, and since you did that, I'll go ahead and I'll go on your show, and we'll do the interview.
And after you talked to him, what did you take away from that interview?
After that interview, I think a lot of people took away the same thing, that they were struggling, they had issues, they were aware of their issues, they were trying to correct them. They made mistakes, they were going to do better, and I thought that it was they had turned a corner as far as the way they express themselves in the way they communicated to the internet. So myself and many others were like, well, we can give them a new chance. We'll start all over, a fresh slate. We'll see how it goes. And then a day later, Tommy made a video that kind of just poo-pooed all over everything.
Do you think that was connected in any way to your interview or just timing?
I definitely think that was done purposefully because, like I said, I did the interview, and then the general consensus around it was real great. A lot of people were saying that Nick should be the face of the company going forward. Even on Atari Age, people were talking up the interview, and I think it might have been a little bit of an ego blow to Tommy, and so he went out and did his own little video, going around the office talking to people. And
because when I watched that interview after listening to Tommy kind of interviews, it was a change of pace. Whether you like Tommy or not, Nick is a different cat.
yeah.
And he seemed very down to earth, like he wasn't trying to be a showman. Does that make sense? Like he was just trying to talk, and he was telling it like it is. And I don't know, again, if it's your video or was the other video I saw him on. One thing I got from him that I don't think anyone really talks about is he talked how they basically rebuilt the motion controls. Was that in your interview?
Yeah, that was in mine.
That's like a huge thing to me. Like you rebuilt the motion controls of something, and no one talks about that. But if you know that, and then you see the one video where they were still messing with cornhole and people were like, what are they doing messing with cornhole still? Well, I think they redid the motion controls and they were, making it work with them. So that's what I think what happened. So I want to commend you for that interview, and I want to commend Nick Richards because I thought it was a really good interview. I thought it was really well done. Okay, Tony. So what are Intellivision's big problems they have to overcome if they're going to be successful?
Ooh. Their big problems, making mistakes. That's number one, I think, because like we've seen with the battle tanks, they make a lot of little mistakes and they make big mistakes, and they try to cover up those mistakes. So that's at the top of the list. I would think everything they do before they release any video. I think they need to watch it, have someone outside, outside the bubble say, hey, could you watch this video for me? Go over it, make sure there's nothing, that you don't find anything. Same thing with their communications. They need to get somebody to look over everything, make sure there's no mistakes, there's no language that might be misunderstood or misconstrued. So communication, fact checking, I think those are the two big hurdles. I mean, the games are what they are. I don't think at this point they're going to be getting anything better for launch. So, I mean, they just got to do the best with what they got at this point.
Do you think that they will be able to keep their schedule of releasing a game every 10 to 14 days after the launch?
I don't think they will. I think it really hinges on how successful the launch goes, realistically. Because if they are having money issues and the launch is more of a flop, I don't think they'll have the money to spend on new developers. Because from what Nick Richards said, they're a money-hungry company. They're very top-heavy as far as executives. And I know a lot of the games were stopped, the development on games were stopped, and people were moved to other games. So if the launch does not go well, I don't think they'll have the money to have a game out every 10 to 14 days.
My concern has been this with them keeping that schedule is that they were supposed to release the system a year ago. The games that were supposed to be finished a year ago were still basically getting polished up within the last couple months. Why did the games take an extra year to finish?
And that's the $1 million question. Like I said, my understanding is they kept moving people around from game to game. Developers. Then my understanding was they didn't have enough parts to get prototype controllers to all their developers, so they had to stop. Basically, all right, we did 80% of the game. Now we need the controller, so we have to stop this game until we can get a controller. Because if you remember on the Space Strikers video, they were using Xbox controllers, and the developers actually said they couldn't get a hold of any Amico controllers, so that's why they developed it with Xbox controllers, and they were waiting to finish it.
So you think they could probably do a quicker job now?
I mean, realistically, a lot of these games should have been finished within 3 months. I don't know why it took so long to begin with. You have one-man developers doing marvelous things on the indie scene by themselves. And you got these teams with 600 years of experience, and they can't complete any of these simple games in over a year. So I don't know, what exactly is going on, but it sounds like a lot of hemming and hawing and not actually doing any work.
So I will address this comment. Only people who run game companies have valid opinions on games. You heard it here first. Well, first of all, I don't know if you run a game company, so I don't know if that's a valid opinion. But I want to say that observation can be a powerful thing for anybody. You have a company that gave you 3 release dates and failed every one of them. And I understand COVID, but I don't know many other companies that did that. You have a company that said the system was going to be $150 to $180, and then it jumped up a bunch. You have a company that has given us lots of promises and has constantly either come short of those promises or just flat out failing them. I would say that if you expect Intellivison to change overnight the moment that they launch a system, you're not using observation very well. I am concerned, and I don't want them to fail. I do not want them to fail. But how can I trust them to keep pumping out games after this comes out? If everything's been, so wobbly. I don't know. I don't know. So let me ask you, Tony, why do you think the price increased from $150 to $180 to $250?
Well, I think the price increased because when Tommy quoted that original price, he didn't actually look at how much everything cost, the parts and everything. From my understanding, they didn't even have a bill of materials set when he was quoting that original price. So then when they got around to doing that, they saw that the parts and everything were actually going to cost more. So they had to increase the price of the Amigos.
Yeah. I remember in the Slopes interview, he basically blamed it on the haptic controllers. And by the way, man, you got some trolls, man. It is hilarious. Because they all are saying the same thing over and over again. So I'm just going to block them. And you know what's crazy is last interview, I didn't have to block anybody. I don't know what that says. Let me just take a step back. I had two Pro Amico people on my channel last week. Really cool people. I enjoyed having them on. I had very little problems in the chat. There was one person pointed out to me later, very little problems in the chat. I have one kind of anti-Amico. Do you think it's okay to say you're an anti-Amico person, or as far as like if you go pro or against?
I would just call myself a critical Amico person.
Okay. A critical. You have one person who's been critical of the Amico, so I guess it's a fair way to put it. And all of a sudden, all these people come out. What does that say when someone is critical and these people come out and they don't come out with facts? They just come out with, insults. That is not a good thing. That's not going to really help that families you're trying to reach. If you want to reach families, let's go ahead and have a discussion. And that's what I'm doing here. I had a discussion with Pro Amico people last week. I had a discussion with Tony, who's more on the critical side. And next week, I'm trying to hook up with another guy who's very pro Tommy and Amico, and I want to have a discussion with him too. So I'm just letting you guys know I'm trying to hear both sides of the story, but I'm trying to take turns. And the reason why I did two people last week is because they shared the event together. So it made sense. So I'm sorry for taking that kind of sidestep. So
No, that's fine. When they can't refute your argument, they resort to attacking your character, and that's what you're seeing here.
yeah, and it's just sad. It doesn't, because it's like, okay, whatever. It's like if you can't have a discussion, you can't have a discussion. And if you don't enjoy hearing someone who's critical about the Amico have a discussion, bring up the facts that he's critical about and tell us why he's wrong. Tell us what's wrong with the opinions, and we can have a discussion. But don't just say, "Oh, you sound nervous." What? Are you kidding me? That's kind of just weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
so he blamed it on the $25 increase, which made no sense because the price went up like $100 if you go from 150 to 250, or if you go from 180 to 250, $70. So I don't understand that explanation. Why do you think they have like 5 offices around the world? I understand having like an overseas office, but why 5?
I know they have the office in Germany because of the grants, most likely. The Dubai office, Tommy was convinced for a long time that he was going to get the 3 billion mobile gamers, and India is a very big market for mobile gaming. China is a big market for that. In the Middle East, they're a big market for mobile gaming. So I think he thought, putting an office there would help. The Utah office, from my understanding, when California went in lockdown, they got the Utah office in order to test out the system and do critical tests on the console itself, because they weren't allowed to go into the offices in California.
It's just, it's just interesting to see a startup company start with so many offices. And I'm not saying they're wrong. It's their money, right? They can do what they want. It just seems like a lot to put all that money into those resources right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree.
And hey, if it works for them, great. If it works for them, I'm just kind of the person, like, maybe you have one office in America and one office in Europe, to get both sides if you're doing a worldwide thing or whatever. But we'll see. I will take any comments, any legitimate comments in the chat. If anyone wants to make a comment or ask any questions of Tony, it is getting late. I want to thank Tony for being here. Do you have anything else that any tidbits you can break, or any thoughts or any questions, anything or observations you would like to make before we end the show today?
For me, Tommy spreads his information out all over the place. So it's understandable that certain people just don't have the same information that I have. So I don't fault anybody for being confused by certain things. Like the price increase, he's blamed it on the pandemic. But there is an interview pre-pandemic where he was already talking about the price going up. So the whole idea that the pandemic caused the price increase doesn't jive with his own words. And there's a lot of things, like he says stuff like the Karma engine isn't real. It's just something that he made up. The original price, he pulled it out of his imagination. So, to get the whole story on the Amico, you really have to, cast a very wide net and basically listen to every interview that he's conducted.
So let me do this, because people call you a hater. I want you to say one good thing about the Amico and one good thing about Tommy Talarico. Are you able to do that?
One good thing about the Amico, like good as far as
just a positive. You're making a magazine article and you're going to list positives and negatives. Give me a positive.
A positive about the Amico is, it's bringing back Intellivison and a focus on couch co-op, which while it is not gone from the current scene, it is not being focused on in such a manner. So that's at least a positive for them. And hopefully other companies will see that and try to embrace this couch co-op that has been going away for years.
All right. And something about Tommy.
Tommy, a positive about Tommy is he's very enthusiastic and very willing to have a conversation with just about anybody as long as you are respectful to him.
So I'll share a couple positives just because, I do think when it comes to the criticisms of the Amico, I think you and I share a lot in common. We've seen a lot of things that kind of both perk our ears, if you will, or says that's not so good. So this was not this was a different vibe than last week. I will say that Tommy, if anything, he's passionate. He's passionate, and I do give him props for what he's done in the video game industry. Even if he might take credit more than he deserves, he's done a lot. He got Video Games Live going. He's worked on some games I like. So I will give him credit for that. And I will say that the Intellivison, based on what I saw in the Boston event, it looks like a functional system. I'm not saying it's the best system out there, but it seemed to work. Do you think it's working? Do you like, I heard a little something in there. Do you see something in the system that's bothering you, or you're saying is going to be a problem when people get it in their hands?
No, I was just laughing because the bar is so low that, it functions is seen as some sort of a positive, like a win.
Well, but when you would listen to some of the critics of the system, like there's critics who criticize a system for stuff that they observe and they do some of their homework like you do, but then there's other critics like I've heard some Pat and Ian stuff and they can be really entertaining, but sometimes it's like they're just going off the top of their head and saying, oh, this, and they'll just say whatever they can say that's entertaining and not necessarily that they've done any homework on it. And so for a long time, it's like, this thing's never going to work. The controller leg is going to make things unplayable. And from what I've heard, it works. And people who play it, now you haven't played the system yet, right?
No, I have not.
So you haven't played the system, but from the people I've heard play it, they said, yeah, it worked. So there you go. I mean, the system works and you laugh about it, but there's so many people who say it doesn't work. It'll never work. It's going to be a complete mess. And again, if it wasn't for all these little fires, I think we'd be having a different discussion today.
Well, definitely. I mean, all the little fires and all the little standing in front of the fires, waving your arms, telling me that there's no fire to see. I think if we had got rid of all of those, we'd have definitely a very different discussion.
So Kev Gretz says system barely works, keeps disconnecting from the videos I've seen. Well, I was looking at a lot of the Boston event and it did seem to work. I never saw it disconnect. I saw one controller that the LED light didn't light up on. And I watched a couple hours of that video and people were having fun and seemed to be doing okay. And I'm not saying it's not a fun system. I just don't know if it's going to be able to be successful. And I don't know if it's going to be fun enough to demand the $250 price tag when you have a Nintendo Switch right next to it. If it's not sold out, that, it's about the same price. So does it work? I think it works. Is it going to be worth it? We'll see. All right, Tony, I want to thank you for joining me on the show today. It was a fun chat. It's fun to see the people respond in the chat as well.
Yeah, no problem. Always willing to come on, always willing to have a conversation. If you want to ever have a conversation between me and a pro side, I'm always willing to do that too.
All right, that sounds good. Let's see. There was a question for you. Is there any game you are interested in playing, Tony? And I believe you said that you are interested in playing Finnegan Fox.
Yeah, I'm interested in Finnegan Fox to see the differences between the original and the new version. Like I said, I did chat with the lead developer, so I got a little insight onto it. So I'm interested in that. And Flying Tigers, because I do like shoot 'em ups. So
Let's see. It will release. It may mostly work, but the library will be tiny and mediocre. Do you agree with that comment?
in a way, yes. When he says barely works or whatever, uh, I know the motion controls are having issues, and the screen doesn't seem to be used in any real sense. So I think it'll work, but I think again it'll be the gimmicks will be mostly abandoned. It has a microphone, but one game is using the microphone. It has a gyroscope. Two games use the gyroscope barely.
Do you think the sixth? You know what the sixth game is?
From what Tommy has said in the past, uh, he was very heavily implying that it was going to be a game called Backtalk Party. We don't know much about it. I believe it's a game that uses the microphone that you have to speak into it, and then the system registers something or talks back to you in some way.
Yeah, that's another thing is they wait so long to announce that unless it's going to be some mega huge game, it's going to be a letdown. You can't wait that long. Let's see. Cornhole. Ben says Cornhole didn't feel finished, so he's played it. I believe. Let's see. The deep dive on Astro Smash was nice. The game actually looks good. I'd buy it for a tenner. I wouldn't buy it for a console though. That's I guess that's what I would have to say is what games are worth buying the system for? What's the killer app?
Yeah, Tommy has always said that the system itself is the killer app. I don't think that's very believable. I think they really, Earthworm Jim might have sold some systems, but they're holding it back.
Okay, 1-inch bicep says I have a Nintendo Switch, need something new. I heard Tommy say that this is not going to be a primary system. This is going to be a second system for gamers that they play when their friends come over. It's going to be a party system. So basically, it's going to be the karaoke machine of video game systems. Let's see. It'll be interesting to see how the quality control is for the first units. I agree. Good stream, guys. Thank you. Great show. Thank you. Let's see if there's anything else. Just trying to get the last one. So Ben, he's the first one who said Finnegan Fox didn't feel fun at all. So that's interesting because the people who played it seem to like it. And let's see if there's any other questions before I close it. Oh, Evil Knievel, despite Tony's review, which I think was fair. So I saw that you did a review of the mobile version, right?
Yeah.
Of Evil Knievel. I didn't see it yet. What did you think? Is it still free to download the mobile version? And what did you think of it?
I believe it's still free on iOS. It's $1.99 on the Amazon Android store, and I think the Google Play Store has it taken down, but you can find it for free in the wild. It's pretty basic, pretty bare bones. There's no music during the actual levels. The suits, like I said in my mini review, I think being stuck to the Evil Knievel license limited the game in a lot of ways because, you don't get a lot of wacky costumes. You're not unlocking, say, like a bunny helmet or something. It's all based on Evil Knievel. So, everything's grounded. So, what could be a wacky, fun, motorcycle physics game becomes kind of a dull Evil Knievel physics motorcycle game.
And to be fair, that's based on the mobile version, not the Amico version, correct?
Right.
So the Amico version, it may be more enjoyable with the controller. They may add a few things here and there. So it could be better, right?
Well, from my understanding, they just tweaked the art a little, the graphics, and they added that multiplayer game. But other than that, I don't think they've changed anything.
All right. Well, we shall see. I would like to see when you get because you have the physical card of Evil Knievel. I would like to see your take on it compared to the mobile when you get it. I think that would make for a fascinating video.
Yeah. I know I spoke to Ben before and I seen his video. He was saying that on the Amico, there's no options for setting up your controller. Like whatever the developer decided, is the button configuration. That's it. There's no changing it. And I think that's going to possibly hurt or help Evil Knievel because in the mobile game you have a back and forward button, and when you hit the air, then you have a tilt forward, tilt back button. And I think if you're using the triggers on top of the Amico controller for tilting, that might actually work better than the mobile touchscreen.
All right. Flying Tigers is Ben's favorite so far, and that does look kind of good. I know it's based on like it's not completely original. It's based on something, but I don't know if it was ever officially released. Is that what you have found in your research?
Yeah, they were the same team that's doing Flying Tigers was working on another uh, mobile shooter, and it looks like they tweaked some of the assets and some of the art. Uh, the game they were working on was never released. It's still coming soon. You could kind of find they scrubbed a lot of it off the internet, but using the Wayback Machine and stuff, you can find tidbits.
And it does look like that's kind of been the MO, is to take games that have already been worked on instead of making them from the ground up, at least for a large handful of these games, and just put a fresh coat of paint on it, adjust a few things, and put it on the Amico. Which, listen, if it works, it works. That's fine. It saves you time. It saves you money. I understand why you would do something. Just show me the end product.
Yeah, but I think it's another criticism of the system because you have these games like Evil Knievel that were basically done. You're just tweaking them, and it's still taking like a year to get the game finished.
Yeah, it's taking I don't know why it's taking so long, but maybe it has something to do with the motion controls, and maybe they did something, and maybe it's just the organization, and they don't know who's doing what on what given day. I don't know. Let's see. Ben says that Evil Knievel is not fun. Let's see. I like the idea of the new Moon Patrol, but it just doesn't look great. I like the 4-player thing I heard about, but I don't have 4 people who are going to play couch co-op with me, Amico, in my life right now. If it was an online thing, it'd be more interesting where one person drives, one person jumps, one shoots this gun, one shoots that one. Let's see. Anything else? System can't be a killer app. That's true. Had to turn off my button for a cough real quickly.
No worries.
I wonder who will get their Amicos first. Tommy brings up a good point. There's no such thing as a secondary system when you're not wealthy. I do wonder sometimes if Tommy realizes that the price increase is a big deal to some people, to some demographics. I have to imagine he has to at some point.
Yeah, I've brought that up in the past that it seems like it is being marketed towards upper class people, and I'm more of a lower class, working class person, so I know the hardship of do I spend $250 on this new toy versus I already have things for my kids that they can play.
Right. And for me, it's like, if it's a $250 toy that I'm only going to play every other week, is it worth it? Like if I could get a lot of enjoyment out of it myself, and then once in a while the kids play with me, there you go. Now maybe, but that has to be here. So if you were the CEO, how would you change Amico if you were in charge? And Tony, I think you basically said that you would get quality control down.
Oh yeah.
I think what I would do is, first of all, I would stop just communicating for a while to really get something that looks really good out there, to really get like a wow factor. I think just a step up in the presentation would be nice. Like I like the deep dives, but it's like, it's 2 guys from Intellivison, kind of like we're talking, just talking. It doesn't come across like $1 million company, like a multi-million-dollar company. And I would do something to make it look a little bit more professional. That's what I think I would do. And I wish I could say lower the price, but I don't know if that's possible anymore.
Yeah, I think that question's kind of loaded because we're so far along the Amico journey. It's like, what could you actually do at this point? I would say I would probably cut a lot of the unnecessary executive positions. The company's way too large for what they're trying to do. Some of those offices could close up. I would probably cut ties with a few of the games, the licenses they're trying to get. They're unnecessary. I don't think that the Amico really needs licensed properties like Sesame Street or Care Bears. You don't have a big enough audience for that to make any kind of impact at this moment. Leave that for like a year 2, year 3 type thing, and just make quality games, small, cheap. I've said it before. There's a lot of failed Kickstarters out there that have good games that would fit very well on the Amico. I would reach out to those devs and say, hey, your game's already 90% done. You only needed another 50,000. We'll pay for it. You finish the game, put it on the Amico. We'll split the profits, 25, 75, whatever deal you work out. And you probably could get 30, 40 games real quick that are quality that people would be interested in.
And I think I would have focused on that retro gamer community. I would have and said, hey, this is also something you can play with your family in addition. I think I would have switched the focus. And I think they're starting to switch the focus, because I noticed in the FAQ that they just said, hey, it's done, which I think they've had an FAQ up, but they are like, trying to correct quote unquote misinformation. They really tried to focus on the single player aspect, which they really haven't done at all. They haven't really talked much about the single player aspect of these games. And I think that's where you say, hey, you know what? Let's not release, 20 some games at launch. Let's release 10 games. Let's get rid of some of the games that aren't going to be big system sellers, put them on the back burner. Let's focus. Let's get Earthworm Jim 4 to be a platform sequel, because I've heard that Earthworm Jim 4 is not going to be a platformer. Have you heard that?
Tommy has said lots of things about it. And there's an interview where he said basically that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whenever it was, that Earthworm Jim was a platformer. Why would they go and do another one? Obviously they're going to do something different. It's been done already. It's time to do a different take on the Earthworm Jim. Then in another interview, he said, no, of course it's gonna be like a platformer, and maybe it's gonna be multi characters. And then in another one, he said something along the lines that it might be a bunch of mini games connected in some way. So it seems to be all over the place as to what it's gonna be.
Yeah, I see. I would make it. It's the closest thing I think they have to a killer app that gets people interested. Because when I watched the E3 coverage, that was the one title that people were like, "Oh, Earthworm Jim is coming back." That was the one thing that got some mainstream buzz, as far as your general tech kind of people, people who cover video games in general. So I would have said, let's make Earthworm Jim 4 a console exclusive right off the bat. Let's focus on getting some of these retro titles that we said were coming back. The Burger Times, one of the favorites of Intellivision fans. Let's make it something special. So I would have done less better, or I would have said, hey, let's put our resources into less games, but make them more, more appealing, because I don't know how many people really care about Farkle. It looks fun. It looks okay. And a pool game, it might be fun, but people don't usually buy systems for that. That's something that's like extra. And I want to make the cake first, right? So,
yeah, I agree. I've said in the past that, like cornhole shouldn't be just cornhole. It should be like cornhole, lawn darts, lawn bowling, like a collection of lawn games. Same thing with Farkle. It should be like a collection of dice games. At least you're getting, a lot of bang for your buck. You're like, well, $10, I got like 15 different dice games I can play on the Amico. That's something someone can sink their teeth in and justify buying, versus just Farkle. You're like, well, I could just buy dice for like $3.
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, those games, they needed something more. They needed something more, I think, and they could have had it, but yeah, they kind of did whatever. It's not something I don't want to spend $250 because on a system just to play cornhole, because I don't know if people remember it. I have a Wii game that has cornhole in it. It's like Game Party 2 or something. And I'm not saying it's the best cornhole, but I already have that. Sometimes I wonder, like, if I just want a game to play with my family, why don't I just get a Wii in some games? They still work well. Why would I do something? Why would I have to buy something new? I bet that's just my side. That's just my
Well,
thinking.
Tommy has addressed that. He said that casual gamers don't buy used systems.
Well, and here's a question: do mobile gamers buy video game systems? Period.
We've asked him that. I think I've asked him in the interview what would make mobile gamers put down their phones to play the system. And he said that because the Amico can be played on the TV on a couch with family, and you can't do that on the mobile.
Yeah, but obviously they could buy it. Their systems aren't new; they've been around for years.
Yeah, we've me and various other people have tried to explain this to Tommy. You can actually play games on the big screen from your mobile phone. You can play mobile games with multiplayer. But the whole reason that people are playing mobile games are because they're mobile. You're playing them on the bus stop. You're playing them on the doctor's office, while you're waiting in line at the DMV, while you're on the facilities,
And they're often free.
Yeah. And I think he, because when he talks about mobile games, he talks about how much money they make. So I think he's trying to equate that mobile games make more money than console games. So obviously he wants to go after the bigger market. But A, his games are not free. B, his games are not mobile. And C, he doesn't have any game on the Amico equivalent to the money-making mobile games that he's trying to take from.
Yeah,
there's no Pokemon Go. There's no gacha games. There's no loot box games. There's no trading card games on the Amico. No Candy Crush games. No Match 3. No Angry Birds.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to try to get mobile gamers who I think are happy with what they have. That like this is what we do. We play these games. So I wonder if that's a good audience to go after. Time will tell. Time will tell. On my last stream, someone said that Tommy would be a good person to go on QVC or Home Shopping Network and sell this. Do you think that that's kind of what Tommy's made for? Like, do you think if he went on there, he could sell it to the grandmas who are watching QVC?
Oh, he can definitely sell it to the grandmas or anybody that's unaware of everything that's going on. I mean, if you totally remove yourself from all the drama, all the information you have, and just watch a single, positive Tommy interview, it sounds good on paper. All the things he says sounds good. It's when you look beyond the surface that you start to discover that it's not all roses.
I'll address this. You guys haven't talked about the games being $10 to $20. Well, first of all, they're right now supposed to be all $10 and under for the digital, at least. And you know what? There are some good games. I've had many games under $10 that appeal to me more than what I've seen so far. Steam World Dig on my 3DS is a game I really enjoy, and it didn't cost me $10. So there are good games out there that have depth that I really like, but I don't see it. The only games that really have appealed to me so far is Cloudy Mountain, which hasn't really even been shown that much. That's a game that really interests me, and I would obviously play Astro Smash. So would I pay $10 for it? I don't know. Maybe. I have the Intellivision version. I like that. So Tommy could sell some on QVC and Home Shopping Network, but not enough to keep the company afloat. That's probably true. But that's kind of like the way they're going about it. The one other thing I would do as a CEO, you have all these Intellivision games that you own outright. Go ahead and throw 20 of those games on the system for free. Just do it. I
don't think they actually own any of those games, to be honest.
I think they do because like they've had the I know there's licensed ones like Tron Deadly Discs that they would have to either rename or work through Disney to get the Tron name. but I think a lot of them they own because when Keith Robinson was in charge of Intellivision, they were constantly using those games and licensing them out for like the Intellivision flashback and stuff like that. Do you know something I don't know?
Yeah, I think I might actually know something you don't know.
Oh, go.
The original company Intellivision that Keith was a part of, there was 5 owners, from my understanding. Tommy, after Keith passed away, Tommy bought Keith's share in the company, and only Keith's share. He then used that to create Intellivision Entertainment, which is a separate company from the original Intellivision. Not original, but the one that existed after Mattel. That company is now Blue Sky Rangers, and I believe they actually hold the license to all the original Intellivision games and not Intellivision Entertainment. That's why the games were licensed out to Evercade. I think Tommy thought that buying Keith's share, that the rest of them would just go along with him putting the old games. That's why originally they were supposed to be on the system. But I think at some point they were like, no, we're not giving them to you for free. We still want to make money off of them. And so I think that's why we're at where we're at with those.
Okay. That makes possible sense. That would make a lot, because Mike says that's correct, and slowly transfer the rights to his company. I mean, that's what I heard, is that, and maybe that was just Tommy being Tommy, is that, I knew he bought Keith's share. I didn't realize it wasn't enough to have control of the games. So basically he has to pay those people over at Blue Sky, and they're basically I know it was a separate company, but I kind of thought it was to protect the Intellivision, the other side of Intellivision, in case the Amico went south and went bankrupt, and they wouldn't lose all their assets. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that's what it was, why they did it that way. I didn't know that there might be financial behind the scenes, and I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but it makes it very possible. Okay. Tony, you just made it worth having you on today. I never thought about it that way, that they're like, I realized the separate company thing, but that could make sense. I know the Blue Sky Rangers. I wonder, this system would make a fascinating documentary.
Yeah.
The creation of this system, getting some behind the scenes information from the Blue Sky Rangers and from people who work with Tommy 10 years later, 20 years later, it would be absolutely fascinating, I think.
Yeah, the Intellivision Entertainment Company is actually 5 LLCs if you look into it. So that in and of itself is kind of interesting.
Why would they have 5? You know more about this stuff than I do. Why would you have 5 LLCs? Like, what are they all covering?
One, I believe, is the main, Intellivision Entertainment. I think one is the game, the rights to the games. It's like Intellivision Games or something. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why they would have 5 unless they're trying to separate the assets and the money in case one folds or in case the Amico tanks. They could shuffle things around. Creative booking.
Maybe this whole thing is fascinating to me, and that's why I keep covering it, because we have never seen a company that has put so much out there. We have never seen a company that has, in some ways, made the mistakes they've made. We have never seen a company that has really brought a polarization like this. When they advertised the Amico was coming in their first video, one of the things that they said that they were the creators of was the first System Wars, and I find that ironic, because they've created a system war in here. I don't see System Wars being like it used to be with like Sega and Nintendo, I'm sure there is some with PlayStation and Xbox, but man, the passion on both sides is fascinating to me. I'm assuming it's fascinating to you too.
Oh, it's very fascinating. Every time I think I'm done, just something new happens. It just draws me back in.
And I was planning to do the show just every other week, but there's just been so much going on, and so many people are like, hey, you should have this person on the show. I was like, man, I mean, look what's happened in one week. We've had Battle Tanks, Astro Smash, and production in 1 week. So we'll see. we're running on 2 hours. I tried to end this show, but I had so many good comments. So I want to thank the people in the chat for all the comments. And I want to thank you, Mr. Tony, again for being on the show. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me either at thegeekgetaway.com, at the Geek Getaway on Twitter, or of course the Geek Getaway YouTube channel.
Yep, absolutely. And I do plan to have more people lined up in the future. I'm like I said, I'm working on someone who's more pro Amico for next week, and I will be getting as many sides as I can when I do this. So thank you guys for this time. Remember, guys, games are fun, but let's keep first things first. There's more important things than games, and let's not forget about that. Let's be excellent to each other. I'll see you guys later.